Say hello to the Book of Mormon. Ben Brantley of the New York Times says the Book of Mormon is the best musical of this century. Winner of 9 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. The Book of Mormon. Performances begin February 12th at Robinson Performance Hall. Visit CelebrityAttractions.com.
Good afternoon, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Monday, February the 4th. Well, the legislature's back in session today, and the Senate can't wait to pass Asa Hutchinson's income tax legislation. It zipped out of a Senate committee this morning. This is the tax cut that's designed really to comfort the wealthy. It's going to take effect over a 2-year span. When it's all done, there's going to be a 14% cut in the tax burden on the really wealthy, those people who make more than $450,000 a year. 1% of the tax cut total cost of 70% of the total cost of the tax cut, about $150 million, will go to 1% of taxpayers. Some people around the 80,000 level might get about a 40 cents a week tax cut. The Senate likes it and it heads on to the House. I think the idea is to get this thing passed before anybody starts using their computers and realizing how favorable it is toward the wealthy and how little it gives anybody else. 90% of the money is going to go to the people making more than $205,000 a year. Well, this comes at a time unfortunate for the state. The state revenue reports out today the monthly income for January, and it shows income was down compared to the same month a year ago and down significantly from the amount forecast. This is interesting only because tax cut also will come out of revenue, and this raises another possibility that the state won't have the money it needs to adequately fund public services. But it seems that the Hutchinson administration is more concerned about tax cuts than public services. Also at the legislature today, a bipartisan group of senators and representatives introduced a bunch of ethics strengthening legislation, which is always welcome out there. It's after the cows left the barn for a series of corrupt legislators in years past, but still they'll increase the fines for ethics violation. I don't think they've ever imposed the maximum penalty in the past for any of them. They'll also say that if you commit a crime in the course of your public business, you might lose your retirement. This is something that hadn't been much of a deterrent in the past either. Also, perhaps some new restrictions on PACs. They didn't go as far as I'd hoped they'd go. More disclosure about the money made by legislators in their private lives, and more disclosures about the people they do business with, so that we'll know if they're actually doing the public's interest or doing self-interest when they're in the legislature. There also needs to be some limitations on corporate contributions to PACs. PAC money almost entirely finances most legislative races now, and there needs to be some change in that. I don't think that's on the agenda at the moment. Also about state government at work, the state has spent more than $1 million already to put out a long smoldering dump fire in Benton County, Arkansas. Why do I care? Well, this could cost $30 million before it's over. The governor is moving heaven and earth to get his environmental quality department, to get his forestry commission to work to put this fire out. The Republican representative in Northwest Arkansas, Steve Womack, says he's trying to get some federal money. This is a fire that's a result of mismanagement by a local property owners association. Apparently they used the dump, didn't monitor it very much, fire started, and now it's a potential air and water problem for people up there, not to mention just a nuisance. And who else would Republican Benton County, full of Tea Party, anti-tax, anti-government people, turn to when they have a disaster but the federal government to bail them out? I'll remind you that Senator Tom Cotton, who frequently parrots that line, voted against disaster relief for people who are hit by a hurricane in the northeast part of the United States, but those are liberals, not good, God-fearing, tax-opposing Republicans in Benton County. When they need a helping hand, they're going to go to the government to get it, not from their own pockets, you can be sure. Also today on the government agenda was a meeting of the Joint Retirement Committee to talk about plans to cut the benefits for public employees on retirement systems and to make them pay a little bit more into their pensions. The idea is to make sure these pension funds are actuarially sound. A ton of them turned out for the hearing today, but it was really just an introductory meeting. They didn't make any progress, I don't think, in moving that legislation along just yet. More to come on that. Senator Tom Cotton, speaking of, Politico reports that he's going to have a book coming out in May. Supposedly he's gotten a $500,000 advance from a publishing arm of a company that happens to be headed by Rupert Murdoch, just coincidental, I'm sure. Big money for Tom Cotton, who happens to fall on that end of the political scale. He's going to write about his time serving in the Old Guard, an Army unit that oversees services at the Arlington National Cemetery. Politico, interestingly, calls it an apolitical book. He may not advance any of his far right-wing political agenda in it, but I think a U.S. senator who's burnishing his veterans background and a book in time to potentially run for president soon, it has to be viewed in a political sense no matter what. He, in fact, says a veteran is just the kind of guy you want to run for political office, the article quotes him as saying. News on the legal front in Arkansas. It's a lot of people object to mentioning this, but I think it's worth noting that John Goodson, the Texarkana lawyer and UA Board of Trustee, filed for divorce last week against his wife, Supreme Court Associate Justice Courtney Goodson. Divorces are private matters. It's a pro forma divorce filing. Seems like it's going to be amicable, but their marriage caused a great deal of coverage and hundreds of thousands of political advertising, and her last two races for Supreme Court took into account that marriage, gifts he made during their courtship, and his position as a prominent trial lawyer who contributed heavily to political candidates. So the fact that that marriage is now ending at least removes that, you would think, from future discussions and future races. Finally, this bit of news from Hollywood. Julie Adams, you may or may not remember, she had a long career as an actress, has died at 92. She was a graduate at Little Rock High School, attended Little Rock Junior College, was Miss Little Rock in 1946, but despite a number of very successful roles on screen, she's perhaps best remembered as the damsel in distress in The Creature from the Black Lagoon. So farewell to Julie Adams. And farewell to you today. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be resisting, and I'll be back tomorrow.